Welcome to Humanity's Memory.
When the sky breaks, open storms terrify us. They come uninvited, crash into our lives, and tear apart what we thought was secure. Nobody asks for a storm. Nobody prays for the roof to leak, for the waves to rise, for the wind to scream. And yet storms come. And so the question is inevitable. Why would God, if God is good, make us go through the storm? Why not let us live in sunshine forever? Why send his followers, not the sinners, not the wicked, but his most faithful strayed into the waves? The answer is not comfortable, but it is powerful. The storm is not punishment. The storm is revelation. The storm is not a curse. The storm is an invitation. In this essay, we will unravel the 5 great meanings of the storm in human life. The storm as the test of faith. The storm as training ground for strength. The storm as exposure of false values. The storm as the gateway to new beginnings. The storm as the reminder of human humility. And then we will ask the question our ancestors asked before us. Will you drown in the storm, or will you discover yourself in it? The storm as the test of faith. Every sacred story begins with a storm. The flood in Noah's time, the storm at sea when Jonah fled his mission, the storm on the Sea of Galilee when the disciples trembled as their boat filled with water. Why storms? Why not tests with gentle breezes and kind sunshine? Because faith is meaningless when nothing is at stake. Sunshine never asks questions. Storms do. When the disciples screamed, "Teacher, do you not care if we drown?" Jesus did not answer with a lecture. He stood up and said to the wind, "Peace, be still." And then he turned to his terrified friends and asked, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" The storm was never about drowning. The storm was about revealing the truth of their hearts. In the calm, they trusted their skills. In the storm, they discovered the limits of their control. And only then could they see that faith was not a theory, but a lifeline. Our storms are no different. The diagnosis that rattles the bones. The bankruptcy that wipes out a lifetime of work. The betrayal that shatters trust. In those moments, our prayers are not polite. They are desperate. And in that desperation, we finally see whether our faith is genuine or simply decorative. God does not send the storm to destroy you. God sends the storm to expose you. The storm does not ask, "Do you know theology?" The storm asks, "Do you trust me when everything collapses?" The storm as training ground for strength. Imagine a world without storms. No setbacks, no struggles, no pain. It sounds heavenly, doesn't it? But such a world would produce humans as soft as wax. Trees grow strongest where winds resist them. Muscles grow only when fibers tear and rebuild. Diamonds form under crushing pressure. Why should the soul be any different? The storm is the divine gymnasium. It hurts, yes. It exhausts, yes. But it is where endurance is born. Without storms, we would remain fragile creatures of comfort. With storms, we discover resilience we never knew we had. Consider the biographies of every leader we admire, whether prophets, reformers, or inventors. Their greatness was forged not in vacations, but in storms. Moses had his wilderness. Gandhi had his prisons. Martin Luther King Jr. had his threats. Jesus himself had his cross. Without storms, there is no strength. Without storms, there is no story. Without storms, there is no soul. This is why Jesus never promised his followers a storm-free life. He promised the opposite. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. The storm is not a punishment. It is the classroom where God teaches us how to stand. The storm as exposure of false values. Perhaps the most brutal gift of the storm is its power to strip away illusions. In calm times, we build our castles. Money in the bank, titles on the wall, followers on social media, applause in the crowd. We believe these things define us. We cling to them as shields against emptiness. And then the storm comes and suddenly, money cannot heal cancer. Titles cannot mend betrayal. Followers cannot quiet loneliness. Applause cannot stop the coffin from closing. The storm does not care for our illusions. It rips them away and leaves us naked. And in that nakedness, we discover what actually matters. The friend who stays, the family who loves, the God who does not abandon. Storms are therefore divine audits. They examine our values and declare, this was fake. This was fragile. This was real. The storm is humiliating, but it is also liberating. Better to lose illusions in this life than to cling to them until eternity. The storm as the gateway to new beginnings. No one leaves a storm unchanged. You either emerge bitter or you emerge transformed. Jonah ran from God until the storm forced him back to obedience. Paul was shipwrecked, but the storm led him to new shores of mission. Jesus himself endured the storm of the cross, and out of that storm rose resurrection, the greatest new beginning in history. Storms are endings disguised as chaos. They close doors violently, but in closing, they open pathways we never would have dared. Think of the storm of job loss. Terrifying, yes, but sometimes it forces us into a calling we would have never chosen voluntarily. Think of the storm of heartbreak. Painful, yes, but sometimes it clears away relationships that were killing us softly. The storm is God's way of saying, you would never leave the harbor on your own, so I will shake the harbor until you sail. The storm is not the enemy of your destiny. The storm is the doorway to it. The storm, as the reminder of human humility. Modern society loves to pretend it is invincible. With our skyscrapers, our technologies, our armies, and our billions, we behave as if we control the universe. And then comes the storm. A hurricane flattens cities. A virus shuts down economies. A financial crash humbles billionaires. A scandal topples politicians. In one gust of wind, in one microscopic germ, our illusions of omnipotence collapse. The storm whispers a truth we hate to admit. We are small, but humility is not humiliation. It is perspective. The storm reminds us that we are not gods. We are creatures. We are mortal. We are dependent. And in that recognition, there is wisdom, as the book of Job declares. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. The storm is God's way of shaking us awake from arrogance. Satire of civilization in the storm. Let us laugh bitterly at ourselves for a moment. We design political systems that claim to control history. We design economies that promise infinite growth. We design churches that promise prosperity. And then one storm, one financial collapse, one scandal, one virus reveals that our gods were paper gods. The storm is not impressed by our arrogance. It tears down empires like sandcastles at the beach, and yet we still pretend. Politicians blame opponents. Corporations release slogans. Pastors preach louder. But the storm does not negotiate. It does not flatter. It does not obey. Perhaps Perhaps the most comical tragedy of civilization is our refusal to learn from storms. Every generation believes it will be the first to conquer nature, silence, chaos, and control the future. And every generation is proven wrong. The storm always wins, until, perhaps, we learn that the storm is not our enemy, but our teacher. What the storm teaches us about God. And now, the deeper question: what do storms reveal about God? First, storms reveal that God is not a vending machine for comfort. God is not a genie who grants 3 wishes for peace. God is a father who trains children through difficulty. Second, storms reveal that God is not absent in chaos. Jesus slept in the boat not because he did not care, but because he was never afraid. God is calm where we panic. Third, storms reveal that God uses what terrifies us to build what will save us. Without storms, there is no courage. Without storms, there is no dependence. Without storms, there is no faith. The storm is not God's rejection, it is God's investment. How to survive the storm? If storms are inevitable, how then do we endure them? The Bible and history offer 5 survival principles. Anchor in faith. When the waves rise, hold on to what does not move. Trust God more than circumstances. Travel light. Storms strip away illusions, so let go early. Release greed, vanity, pride. The lighter your load, the safer your voyage. Listen for the whisper. God's voice is not always in the thunder. Often it is in the silence after. Pay attention. Look for companions. No one survives storms alone. The disciples needed each other in the boat. So do we. Expect resurrection. Every storm ends. Even the cross had a 3rd day. Never believe the storm has the final word. The greatest storm of Alin. The end. All storms point to one storm. Death. It is the storm every human must face. No wealth can bribe it. No power can stop it. No science can eliminate it. It comes for kings and beggars alike. And yet Jesus walked straight into that storm. He did not avoid it. He did not soften it. He endured it. And then he walked out of the grave alive. That is the ultimate reason why storms do not terrify the believer. If God can calm the storm of death itself, then no lesser storm has the power to define us. Humanity's memory in the storm. So, why does God make you go through the storm? Because without the storm, you would never discover your faith. Without the storm, you would never discover your strength. Without the storm, you would never see what is real. Without the storm, you would never walk into your destiny. Without the storm, you would never bow in humility. The storm is not the end of your story. The storm is the beginning of your transformation. And so, when the next storm rise is ended, we'll remember this truth. The same God who sends you into the storm walks with you through it, and stands on the other side waiting to say, "Peace, be still."